What's up everybody, my name's Denver, and today we're going to be creating something pretty cool. This lower third right here. In case you didn't see it, let me show it to you again. Alright, let's get started. So first thing as always, create a new composition. We'll call it L3, 1080 by 1920 at 23.976 and 5 seconds total. Okay, what we're going to be doing now is I have this color palette here that is used for all the Forge stuff. You are more than welcome to use any color palette you want, but I'm going to stick to this one. So go up to your rectangular shape layer. If you don't have the rectangle, hold down and select it. For the fill, the first one we are going to be doing is Harvest Apple. Okay, we're going to show our title and action safe as well. And we're going to stay right inside this line right here. So the second one from the end. We're just going to drag it and make it a little bit bigger than you think it should be, because that's always how lower thirds tend to be. So that looks great. We're going to go ahead and hit Command T on our keyboard to bring up our text tool and type in Donald Trump, and we are going to bring that one in. Let's move our anchor point to there. Once again, if you do not have this free plugin here, the link is in the description for the download. Now we're going to select both of those and center it all up. That looks great. And if you don't have your align window open, go up to window, align, and it will pop up. Okay, now what we are going to do is take our shape layer here and let's go ahead and just make that red and make Donald Trump peach. You know what? He should be orange because that seems more justifiable. Okay, so we're going to take this shape layer and hit Command D twice, and let's bring back our color palette here. Now on the top shape layer, let's go up to fill and make that this charcoal. Perfect. Now on the middle one here, we are going to go back up to fill and make that stormy sky. All right, so we got kind of this bluish gray and then a medium gray and then the red. Okay, so let's hide our color palette once again. And now what we need to do is let's hide all of our layers except for the bottom red one. Now let's hit let's move our anchor point to the bottom, or to the mid left there. Hit scale on our keyboard, hit a keyframe, go out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames, drag that out so it is at perfectly 100. And now let's go back. Now let's unconstrain our scale properties, and this left one here, actually we are going to have this come in from the right because I think that looks a lot better in my testing. So we're going to drag that back down to 0. So as you can see over time, over total 6 frames, it's going to pop out like that, which is great. Now we're going to highlight both of these, right click, keyframe assist, easy ease. Go into our graph editor up here and make sure you are on edit speed graph. And let's just zoom in here a little bit by hitting the plus key on my keyboard. What we're going to do is drag these both to the middle, kind of like this, but we want it slightly off centered to the right. So it's going to come in a little bit slow and then go fast. So not quite a perfect peak in the middle, but a little off to the right. So now it gives it a little more life. We're going to highlight both of these keyframes, hit Command C on our keyboard to copy them. Let's bring back both our other shape layers and hit Command V on both of those to duplicate. Let me adjust those move anchor points. Okay, now we will put both of those on there and slide them both over 1 frame. So now if I hit U on my keyboard to bring them all up and go frame by frame here, you can kind of see the animation we have. So I will play that at full speed now. One more time. So it's looking pretty good. Now what we're going to do is bring back Donald Trump, which is something I never thought I'd say. Duplicate our top layer, which is this gray layer, and drag that on top of Donald Trump. Switch to, so you can see your track matte, or this down here, and set the Donald Trump layer to alpha matte. And now what that will do is bring it on, which is what we want. Okay, so now that we have that, what we want to do is bring a little section down here to kind of show what, like the title of the person. So now we are going to drag this out so this is fully animated. Go back up to our shape layer up here. All right, now we're going to line this up as best we can. It doesn't have to be perfect just yet. We will fix that here in just a moment. So now what we are going to do, actually, you know what? Let me just get out of there. We're gonna leave that at the stormy sky gray because that's the bottom layer that we want. Now let's make sure that all these shapes are aligned left. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this 2 times. So we have a total of 3 again. We're gonna select our top one here, go up to fill, hit our eyedropper tool and go to harvest apple. Go to this middle one here, fill, and this one's gonna be the charcoal as well. And then the bottom one is the stormy sky. So we are using the same 3 colors, but in a different order. Okay, now we are going to go out to the 7th frame because that is where our first animation stops. And with this timing and everything, you are more than welcome to adjust it to your liking. This is just what I did and what I liked. Once again, let's move all of our anchor points here to the mid left because this one's actually going to be coming out from the other direction. And let's duplicate this Donald Trump layer and drag that up to the top. Now let's type comedian. I may have spelled comedian wrong, which is ironic within itself. Yes, I did. Okay. I promise I know how to spell. Oh, okay. You know what? We're just gonna redo this. That was about 13 times harder than it should have been. Okay, let's make this just a little bit smaller because the title should never be as big as the person's name, even when their ego is. So let's go ahead and center up all of these layers too with our text. Okay, now these shapes are a little bit long for my liking, so I'm going to drag that in and then bring comedian this way as well. And by holding down shift, it will move in a straight horizontal or vertical motion instead of freely like that. Now what we're going to do is we need to animate this on in the opposite direction. So again, making sure all of our anchor points are to the mid left, we are going to go to our first layer here, which again, let's solo that. So we got this stormy sky, I believe it's called. Let's hit scale, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, drag that one out, and then let's unconstrain this and set this to 0. Now let's highlight these once again, go to keyframe assistant, easy ease. It's the same exact thing as before. And we will zoom in a little bit here, hitting the plus tool. And once again, let's make this middle point, but slightly off center to the right. That looks good to me. Okay, that might be a tad slow. So what we're gonna do is bring that in. So this animation will be 5 frames. Okay, now let's duplicate both of those and copy and slide those over. So if we unsolo this layer, and let's hide comedian for the time being because we don't have that set up yet. You should see this come on and finish up, and then this one comes on, but that's a little slower than what I want. Okay, so now what I actually want this to do is just start kind of already appearing a little before. So I'm gonna slide this back 2 frames like that, which now might be a little quick. Yeah, okay, so let's go a happy medium of 1 more frame back. That looks good. So now what we are going to do is drag that to line that up, duplicate our top layer here, drag that above the word comedian, and set that to alpha matte. Mine already did, which is very convenient. Make sure comedian is showing and not your layer that is revealing it. And now we have it animating on. So what we need to do now is animate it off. Okay, so let's go to our Donald Trump layers and go to 4 frames or 4 seconds, 12 frames. Now what we need to do is basically recreate this in the reverse. There's a couple different ways you can do this. Really tedious, you can't just like swap them out, super simple. So what I'm gonna be doing is just copying this keyframe, pasting it there, copying this one, going out 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna go out 4, so it's not gonna be quite the same speed here, and paste that. Now what you should be able to do is highlight these and copy and paste them on the right layer there, and then go 1 more frame and paste it like that. So now they should animate off, which is exactly what we want. Now let's make sure to copy these, paste that one up there. Now these 2 layers should be the exact same because this is revealing the word and then wiping it off. So those need to be at the same rate. So now Donald Trump should animate off here in just a second. Okay, that looks good. I think it's a little long, so I'm gonna drag all these keyframes in 1 frame, not 1 second. You can either shorten up the keyframes like that, which is not really coming out with an effect that I like, so we're gonna undo that. One thing you could do is go back into your graph editor here and kind of mess around with this as well and kind of mirror the effect we had on the other side. So once again, where's my graph at? Probably helps if you highlight the graphs. Okay, that looks good. Now let's take this one here and drag that as well. So let's zoom back out here and see what this looks like. Oh, I need to copy these and paste them up there as well. So now the text wipes off at the same speed. Okay, that's looking a lot better. So now Donald Trump is done in the sense of animating on and off. And now we need to do the same thing for comedian. So once again, we are going to copy this keyframe. Let's go out to 4 seconds, 12 frames. Paste that and go 1, 2, 3, 4 and paste the first one here to the last. Copy these and paste, copy and paste. And now you could do the graph animation and then copy and paste. When I was doing it earlier, I was getting some weird movements for my shapes, so I decided to just do each one manually, which isn't that big of a deal because it takes all of about 30 seconds. So once again, drag that out so it's kind of an off-centered peak. It's not a perfect representation of our one on the first, or for the animate in, but I think that is a-okay because I like how this looks. So now once again, let's copy these and paste them up top on our alpha layer so that the word wipes off. And now what we have here is a completed lower third. Animates on and off. But if you noticed in my original that I showed you, I had kind of this glare going across, which is a super easy effect. It's one of those things that looks super impressive, but it's actually not at all. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's highlight all of our comedian layers here and pre-compose and say title, and then highlight all of our Donald Trump layers, pre-compose and hit name. So just to differentiate these a little bit, let's actually set that one to red and this one to orange, because once again, that's more fitting. And I don't need my color palette anymore, so I'm going to delete that layer out. So once again, now we have this here, which looks great. And so what we are going to do is go up to our shape layer once again, just make this a solid white, and drag it out kind of however long or thick you want. And then we are going to go to our rotation properties by hitting R on our keyboard. Set this to -60. All right, that looks pretty good. Now this is definitely much bigger than I need, so I'm going to shrink this down, kind of bring that in. And if you didn't notice, I set my anchor point to be in the middle with my move anchor point script over here. That's just going to make life a lot easier in the future. Okay, we need to go to where this is fully animated on. And actually I want both of these to be animated on for a couple frames here. So let's just go out to 1 second and take this glare. Hit P on our keyboard to come up with a position. Keyframe that there. Let's go out to our 4-second mark and holding down shift, drag this across. And that should be good. Now, if you notice when I dragged it across, there's a little gap right here. So what we're gonna do is highlight both of these and just, drag, come on. Okay, we gotta go over here, I forgot. And drag these down. Like that. So now when it slides across, it is fully covering that. Now let's set our opacity of this to about 10. Once again, this is something you can definitely play with and get the effect you want. So you can kind of see what we're doing here, but obviously we've got some overlap, which is not what we want, but we're going to fix it here in just a second. But you can see the effect that we are getting. So now what you're going to do is hit Command D on this title layer, or no, I'm sorry, Command D on the name layer and drop that on top. And now this should be alpha matte as well. Yes. So now you can see, oh, and actually this is a little hiccup of mine. You can see it already right there in the corner. So what we're gonna do is just hold down shift and drag that off a little bit more so that it is good to go. You can see this will slide across, which is looking real nice. We haven't added any life to it yet, but we will. So we are going to duplicate this shape layer and drag that down to above title. And let's duplicate title as well and drag that on top. So now we will have that alphabet already set up. Now let's hit U on our keyboard, go back to the first keyframe, highlight both of those, and we're going to drag this down so it goes over comedian now instead. So now we have it over comedian, although with this red, it doesn't show up quite as much. So I think I went to about 15 or 20%. Let's stick to 15 there. That looks pretty good. One thing you want to do, which will give it a lot of life, is obviously we're going to go into our graph editor here in just a minute. But since this bar is shorter, you want to have the overall distance traveled be shorter. So what we're going to do is take this and move it over to the left. So it goes to, actually we're going to overshoot it just a little bit like that. But essentially, this will give it a little bit more life because they won't be moving in succession to each other. You can see the Donald Trump has more distance to travel, and so it goes past at a faster rate, which I think looks a lot better. So let's go up to this Donald Trump one, hit U on our keyboard to highlight these keyframes, right? Click Easy Ease, or Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, go to our graph editor, and this one you can kind of play around with however you want. I don't fully remember what I did. I think I did something kind of slow like this and it speeds up, which I thought looked pretty cool. Problem is, I kind of wanted it to shoot off like really, really fast, but the buildup was taking too long. So I think what I ended up doing is actually dragging this in about 12 frames or so. So let's see what that looks like. So ignore the comedian and the Donald Trump right there. I think that looks pretty good. It's still a little slow, so I might drag this in another 6 frames, bump that over one more. So now it's going to be a total of 2 seconds and 6 frames, or 2 1/4 of a second. I think that looks pretty good. Now let's go down here and we're going to drag that over to line that up as well. And let's go ahead and fix our comedian. So once again, right click, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. Go into our graph editor, and once again, we are going to drag this like that, which I think is going to look really good or really terrible, whatever you want. Doesn't really matter to me. So, okay, so that looked good, except for the fact that I wanted the comedian to kind of be overshot by the Donald Trump. So we need to go and change up our graph in here, which all we have to do is kind of drag this out like that, and that should fix it. Not quite, but we can also just stagger this. So if I go out 6 frames like that, and so Donald Trump starts earlier, let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks like they're moving in succession. So let me just drag this out one more thing here. All right, cool. Now I think both of these are still pretty long. So we might just drag these in to be super short 1.5-second animations. Let's see what that looks like. I think that looks pretty good, but now I don't like how this is. Again, this is a lot of playing around. Okay, so I was playing around with this a little more and got something I liked. So I moved my keyframes in a little bit and shortened them all up and set my timing distance between them at like about an 8-second delay or 8-frame delay. So Donald Trump comes on, and 8 frames later is when the comedian glare starts. So now this is what we have here, which I think looks pretty slick and clean and very professional, and will animate off just in time to get into your content. Because you don't want a lower third to stay on too long, because you don't want to brag about who you are, but you want to let people know who you are so they can relate to you. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this lower third tutorial. My name's Denver with Forge, and I'll talk to you later.